to the Gift of the Struggle, everyone. We are here with Aiko Pickering. I'm so excited. I just met her actually last week. We're working on a committee together in Lower Alabama to do a needs assessment for the LGBTQ community. But her project specifically is something that is so cool and so needed and so forward thinking. So let me tell you a little bit about Aiko. She is the founder of Monthly and the Monthly Project. Chosen as a 2021 Portal Fund recipient and named one of the Women Shaping the State for 2022 by This Is Alabama, she has leapt into the world of entrepreneurship. She has devoted the last year and a half to growing and realizing her vision for Monthly, her menstrual underwear social enterprise business. And the Monthly Project, a charity project that fights period poverty. She comes from a humanities background, had to grow her knowledge of business and nonprofits. So she completed the Minority Business Development Program through South Alabama and now receives mentorship from the Innovation Portal here, the CBDC, and other resources throughout the state. She also works as a communications coordinator for the Center for Fair Housing in Mobile. She also continues to utilize the resources and opportunities of the startups ecosystem in Alabama to push her projects forward. Outside of work, she loves cooking, traveling, reading, being in the gym, and days in the sun. She is also passionate about sustainability and sustainable fashion. So I skipped the part about you coming out of college during the pandemic because I kind of wanted you to give that background information yourself because your path has not been as a straight line. It never is. But I think the pandemic throws a big wrench, especially my children are your age, and they have all experienced sort of a more zigzagged path than they'd imagined for themselves. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about that and how that launched you into what you're doing now?
Yeah, definitely. So I graduated from Spring Hill College in December of 2019. So I got to miss the whole being in college during the pandemic thing. But my partner lives in the UK and I immediately moved to the UK. So like December of 2020, I was in the UK. I mean, it was like 2 months later that COVID hit. And when I was in the UK, I really had this idea of how my life was going to go. I wanted to get a public policy master's degree and work in policy and that sort of thing. And I applied for a degree from the University of Oxford. And they told me to get some real world experience and come back. So I attempted to get some real world experience, then COVID hit and I moved back home to Mobile, which I was not expecting that I was going to have to do that. And it kind of threw me for a loop. I was applying for tons of jobs. My degree is in English and sociology with a minor in gender studies. So it was really, really hard during the pandemic for humanities degrees specifically, I think, because there was like 600 and 700 applications for some jobs that I was applying to in like New York, DC, and there just isn't a huge amount of jobs in Alabama for humanities graduates.
Yeah.
So
I have I have an English degree also with a minor in dance, I mean, so those are never easier. I think they're getting easier though generationally as we go forward because there is a need for writers and thinkers with the internet exploding and everybody having access to so many different things. I hope that it's getting better, but that led you into creating something for yourself, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. So I came home and it felt like it had been months since I worked. I actually always had a job since I was in high school, and then through college I had like 2 and 3 jobs sometimes at a time. So I just wasn't used to it. And finally I had enough after rejection and rejection. I was like, if my perfect opportunity is not going to come right now, I'm just going to create my own perfect opportunity. And that's when I founded the Monthly Project. The Monthly Project, like you said, helps fight period poverty. And we do that we gain donations and we use those donations to buy period products and distribute them to local organizations that serve the populations that need them. It started off as a holiday project only that was just going to go through November and December. And we kept getting donations. So I was like, why stop? And I really, really fell in love with it. So
Aiko, how did you think of it? Because this isn't something that when you're thinking of a give back project that's going to be for Christmas time or the end of the year or whatever, that's not necessarily the thing that comes to mind. So why did you focus on that particular subject or problem?
Yeah, so there's a few different reasons. I was in an organization at Spring Hill that focused on menstrual education. So I had that kind of in my background. And then when I was in the UK and I was applying for jobs in the UK, I mean, there are organizations there that are fighting period poverty. And Scotland became, I think, one of the first countries to make period products more accessible. And I just started to see, we don't have that sort of support in Mobile. And throughout Alabama, I think we could use more support. And it was something that I wasn't seeing being done here. So I thought this would be a really great way to fill that gap. And also, like, it's Christmas time, and someone might be having to say, do I want to buy pads and tampons, or do I want to buy my kids Christmas gifts or Christmas dinner or something like that? And so just a way to kind of ease that burden, especially
So let
during.
me ask you this, because I think, especially if you're a man, um, or if you're a woman of means, you don't necessarily think about the barriers to access or making a choice like that between tampons and pads and a Christmas gift. So to talk a little bit about the barriers, why is it so hard? We know a little bit about the pink tax, right?
Mhm.
That women face. Talk a little bit about the experience of women, especially women who are struggling financially, to be able to support themselves and include that kind of self-care.
Yeah, I mean, just right off the bat, menstrual products are extremely expensive. I
Mhm.
think anybody that's been into a store knows that, a box, if you want something that's not generic, I mean, that's going to cost about $6, $7. And to some people, that's a lot of money.
Mhm.
That's the difference between being able to buy food for yourself, and that's a hard choice to make, right? If you start your period and you don't have money and you have to go to work, what do you do? If you
Right.
have kids and you need to feed them, what do you do? If you have anywhere that you have to be, what do you do? And a lot of these women or people that menstruate that can't access these products use things like the tops of baby diapers, newspaper, anything absorbent that they can find. And
Mhm.
that is not healthy for
Mhm.
their bodies. And we don't want anybody to have to sacrifice their dignity during
Well, I was
that
going
time.
to say, not only is it not healthy physically, but emotionally, that's got to just be really difficult to navigate because, I mean, that's something that's so private and so personal to a lot of people. Most people don't get on a podcast and talk about menstrual products, um, especially younger people, like when young teenage girls or whatever. And then you have a homeless population who
Mhm.
may need access to those, and you can't just, if somebody gives you $6, you really are making the choice between food and a box of tampons. And that's if one box will get you through a month. And some
Yeah,
of them aren't even that cheap, I mean,
yeah. And even through this journey, I found different populations that I hadn't really thought of. Like we work with Fostering Together Gulf Coast, and they provide products to foster kids. And so we give them menstrual products to give out to them, to those children. So there's so many different groups that need these products, and need them at an affordable cost or free. And so we're trying to kind of fill that gap, because nobody should have to be forced to use products that aren't meant for that. And everybody deserves to have dignity during that time of the month.
exactly. Now let's talk a little bit about the different populations that you're reaching, because your garments, you also have the garments.
Yes.
So you're filling in the gap, trying to, with your nonprofit, right, to try to
Mhm.
fill in and provide those products for people. But let's talk a little bit about the garments also, because those are gender inclusive.
Yeah.
And explain to people who are less familiar with this kind of subject matter, what does that mean and why are they a necessity right now?
Yeah. So after I started the charity project, I wanted to be able to keep giving.
Mhm.
And I needed to find a way to sustain that monetarily. And so that's when I came up with Monthly, which is my menstrual underwear brand. So what makes us unique is that we're gender inclusive, that we're sustainable, more affordable than other menstrual underwear you're going to see on the market, and a portion of all of our profits will be going back towards communities in the South to help fight period poverty. Um, I always get asked this quite a lot, because a lot of people really don't understand like why gender
Mhm.
inclusive products are necessary.
Yeah.
And that's because trans and non-binary people exist and they have menstrual cycles. And so if someone is transmasculine, they may be on T, they may but they haven't had surgical transition yet, they still will likely experience some sort of period or menstruation. Same for anybody that's non-binary. And when you go down the aisle in Target or Walmart, everything is pink, everything says for women. And that creates a lot of gender dysphoria for people that don't identify as a woman. And so, in my opinion, it's time to kind of revamp the way that we talk about menstruations and the products, because we need to quit this historical overlook of this entire population of people, and start making products that are for all people.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, and I think the lack of education is one of the problems to overcoming inclusion, to getting that to be a thing that works and that people understand. And so when you talk about that, what kind of reaction have you gotten from the trans community? Because I imagine, usually the goal is for them to have the surgical transition as well, but that can take time, that can take money. We're also in the state of Alabama where they're criminalizing that for youth. So the barriers have become higher and higher, which means that some of these people are going to have the more and more delays for their transitions and their ability to get treated and that kind of thing. So that actually makes your product even more important, because we are in this sort of limbo period in our state and across the country. So what kind of reaction do you get from the trans community about these garments? And I saw them the other day, you had your samples, and they are very accessible to all people. I think you had different styles, different shapes, different fits. So what are the trans people telling you about these products?
So we just got our samples in, but I will say I have done a lot of research because I am a cis woman, and I don't have that experience. So I've done everything that I possibly can to appropriately and authentically represent the needs that there are. So I did do a survey that got nearly 200 responses, and I think 46% of those people were identified as either trans or non-binary, which I think is a huge amount. But the response has been really positive. I mean, I disseminated a lot of it over Reddit, and I had anonymously, like not as myself, just as monthly. And I had a lot of people say, thank you for just asking, because they're just left out of the conversation so much. And to me, I feel like this is doing the bare minimum to like ask people what they need.
Right.
Yeah.
So many people, especially when you're trying hard to make a difference, the biggest mistake I think people who try to make a difference is to assume what other people need or think or feel. And so the fact that you do ask the question, I think, is a critical part of any kind of progress, right?
Yeah, 100%. Because like any business, whenever you're making a product, someone thinks of it and goes, oh, that would be great. And a lot of people pursue things without making sure that it fills a gap in the market. And that wastes your own time and money, and that wastes everybody else's time as well. So that was really important to me, to make sure that I was actually listening to trans voices and non-binary voices. And I've also spoken with gender therapists and done one-on-one interviews with trans and non-binary individuals, just to make sure that I can fully understand the issue and how we can combat this and make sure that this brand is representative of all people.
Right. And it's showing the respect of the humanity of each and every individual who would buy this underwear. So let's talk a little bit about the logistics of how you got all this going, because fresh out of college, trying to get real world experience at the advice of a university. And so you're not doing it the easy way, right? You're starting from ground zero and learning it all yourself. So in terms of things like, how do you find someone to design these, and how do you find someone to manufacture these? What kind of learning curve have you faced, and where do you feel like you are right now in the process?
Yeah, it's definitely been a long journey. I feel like as a humanities major, I don't had no business knowledge when I started this. I don't like math. I'm not good at it. All of the things that would be barriers to me entering this sort of role were there. So I had to do a lot of work on the back end, just educating myself on what it even means to own a business, because it's not as like cut and dry as you would think it would be. There are so many moving pieces, especially when you're like a solo entrepreneur and you don't have like a team behind you. But that's where the innovation portal came in, and the minority business development program came in and really gave me the tools. And I'm really grateful that Mobile has those. resources, because without them, I would have had no idea where to start. But they kind of got me in a place where I was making sure, they're the ones that advise me, talk to people. Don't just make something, talk to people, make sure that
Right.
it's necessary. So they kind of got the ball rolling. But making a garment product is like a whole different ball game than creating an app or, something like that. So I really struggled in the beginning to find someone to help me make this product because I don't know how to do this, and I spent a lot of money in the wrong places.
Yep,
And
as
I
we all
learned,
do, and we're learning.
yeah, but I ended up just randomly stumbling on this company called the Do Good Factory,
Mhm.
and reached out to them, had a meeting with their CEO, Tilly, and I just fell in love with the way that they do business. So they don't use single-use plastic. All of the fabrics and stuff that they use are sustainable, and it was just like perfect fit. So they've done the whole design process. I just told them, like, I want them to look like this. I want to try this fabric and this fabric, and they made the whole, what you would call, tech packs. And then they hooked me up with a factory who then is going to make this product. So I've done a lot of learning because this is just like out of the whole realm of like what my degree had anything to do with.
Right. So when you got those samples, what, last week, right?
Mhm.
How did that feel to see them in your hands?
It felt really amazing because I feel like it's been a long time. I started
Mhm.
doing this, like, I guess January of last year. So it's been like a year and a half, and a lot of life has happened in that year and a half.
Yeah.
And like, I lost my grandmother who I loved so dearly. And so there was a lot of setbacks. So
Mhm.
to get to this point where I actually have like a tangible product to put my hands on was just like a game changer. Like, finally, like, everything I've been doing, it's here. I'm looking at it. It's not just a conversation I'm having with people. It's
Yeah.
like in my hands.
So did it inspire you all over again, like re-energize, you
It
in that? Yeah.
It definitely did. I was kind of in a slump, I would say, like, before, because like it was taking so long to just
Mhm.
get things going. And, access to capital is like a huge thing, especially
Yeah.
to make something like this. And so,
Well,
yeah,
and you're an unknown as a young woman in Alabama. You have no track record of building a business. So those
yeah,
are barriers already in place on top
100.
of the economy being all crazy in the pandemic. So how are you managing to fund? I know you've gotten some financial help, but I also know that you've got a campaign coming up. So tell us a little bit about where you are in the process and what your needs are to get this thing going.
Yeah, so I was really lucky as I was chosen to be the Portal Fund winner, and then I won the pitch competition at the end of the Minority Business Development Program. So I had this seed funding that I'm still going through. It's basically gotten me through, ideation to this first minimal viable product that I have, this MVP that I have. But there is some barriers to purchasing inventory. Most factories, you have to have like 1,000 MOQs per style, and I've got two styles, of a cheeky and a boxer brief.
Mhm.
So I mean, that adds up pretty fast. And so I'm looking to start a campaign, either a crowdfunding campaign or a pre-order launch. I haven't decided yet, but that would help. If anybody would be interested in pre-ordering, that would help us be able to purchase that initial inventory and kind of get the ball rolling, because we have a lot of things that we want to do in the future. Um,
Like
and
what? What are some examples of things you're thinking about down the road?
yeah, so in the beginning, I had a lot of people tell me that they wanted, and this is just random, but like wanted a menstrual thong. And I was like, yeah, I was surprised. And then I started going to the gym and wearing leggings, and I was like, now I
This
wish
is
I
why, right?
had
This
this
is
is
why.
why. And then also like menstrual boxer briefs that have the ability to have a packer. So
Mhm.
for the trans community that wears packers, they can, comfortably menstruate and have their packer.
Mhm.
Also, underwear that clasps on the side for people that are disabled and may have
Yeah.
a range of motion.
Mhm.
So we just want to continue to make products that are for everyone, are for everyone that has a menstrual cycle. And that's kind of in our future, if we can
Mhm.
continue to gain traction.
Yeah, that is exciting. So tell me what your like next 24-month goal is, next 5-year goal And then your ultimate goal. What are you looking for out of all of this?
Oh, wow. I've never been asked this question before. So I guess the 24-month goal would be that monthly is on the market
Mhm.
and competing with these top brands, like Thinx and Nix, and changing the conversations and kind of pushing those other brands to take this responsibility as well. And hopefully pushing like Always and Tampax and those providers as well to make the change and saying like gender inclusive products are necessary and people want them.
And to
Um,
brand them accordingly so that a man can walk down an aisle and feel comfortable, or a non-binary person. However, Target has done a good job of starting to do much more gender inclusive marketing within their store and in their brand, and making things accessible to people with disabilities. So I think those conversations are starting. But I don't know that they've started in this space nearly to the point where some of the other conversations have begun.
yeah.
So let me ask you this about Alabama, because most of my kids don't want to stay here because of some of the backward laws that we have, and it doesn't seem to look like it's getting any better. What is driving you to stay here, run your company here, and do this kind of work here? Because the reason you and I met was at a meeting where we're trying to do a needs assessment for the community, the LGBTQ community, to find out what the needs are, how many people in the community live around here, what is it they're missing, what is it that they're going through, what are their experiences, all in Southwest Alabama. Because without that, we can't get social and political power to make positive change, right? So we're starting at that level. So you and I are both doing some of that work in the community. So tell me about being in Alabama, and how you think you can make change, and how you don't lose hope.
Yeah. So I never in a million years thought that this would be my life today. I grew up in Alabama. I've lived in multiple cities across Alabama. And growing up, I really didn't like being from here. I mean, as a person of color, a mixed person, sometimes I felt kind of like outcasted or weird. And the experience was just very interesting, I'll put it
Mhm.
that way. And so I had always dreamed of like moving to California or New York City. And even after I graduated, I left the moment I got the chance to go to England.
Mhm.
And then COVID hit, like I said, and I came back, and and I think COVID did this for a lot of people, but you go home and this is where your family is at. My
Mhm.
family is here. And while I don't know if I don't think I'll always live in Alabama, I know that I will always have some sort of presence in the state. And um, that's simply because from being home and being a part of doing the monthly project and doing monthly the menstrual underwear, I've really started to see how much opportunity the state of Alabama has. That's my favorite thing, is like we might feel like we're taking tons of steps backwards all the time.
Yeah.
In fact, we are.
Yeah.
But there is room for people and advocates to come together and change the way things are being done.
Mm.
And being on the ground and being in these groups, I'm seeing other people that want change. Where before I felt like I was surrounded by people that didn't want change, I'm now seeing like in numbers we have power. And if everybody my age leaves, if everybody that wants to make Alabama a better place leaves, there's no one here that's left to take on the fight. And
Yeah.
so I want that responsibility to be that advocate for the state, because these laws that are being passed, I think that is just an awesome triumph that like, okay, they can ban gender affirming treatment for trans youth, but here's one of the first gender inclusive underwear brands being
Mhm.
made in the state. Like,
Yeah.
so they're actually seeing like this law does not make sense with the people in the state and
Exactly.
the things that are going on.
Yeah. Well, and I think that generationally, people my age or older have a harder time with some of these changes and some of these conversations. Um, so when my son came out, I have a gay son. When he came out, I was most fearful of the adults, our church, and his lacrosse team. um, our church lived up to my low expectations.
Mhm.
And so we left that church. The lacrosse team did pretty well. They never balked. They didn't ask him to parties and things, but he was comfortable and safe on the team. So that
Oh,
was something. And the adults were the ones that were the hardest part. But in his school, he really didn't have any issues with the kids. And I just think that's because the younger generations don't care. They're more accepting of people for who they are. They
Mhm.
don't mind differences. They're really not in the place where people, I'm 51, so 50s and older, um, I find have a lot harder time with that. So I do think the youth is the hope. They always are in every generation that we have, right? And I think colleges are great places where there are a lot more open minds, and we have quite a few of those in Alabama. So
Uh,
hopefully that's going to make some kind of difference. Um, and I do think that it is important to have people stay and fight the fight. You shouldn't have to leave your family to feel safe and included.
yeah.
And I don't, people talk about the word tolerance. I hate that word. I call it embracing. Like, you should embrace all humans. It's not just tolerating them or including them. You can include and still not embrace.
Mhm.
So I want that embracing of every human by every human. So I think that what you're doing is so important. So let's look at the whole big picture. So from the start of this, which was the struggle really, with the
Mhm.
pandemic and school and finding a job and all those things, to where you are now, what gifts have you gained by going through all of this that was not your original plan for your life?
I feel like I've gained so many gifts because I'm so happy that I found my way to what my life is now. I could not imagine doing anything differently. Monthly is like my baby. I really want more than anything for it to succeed and make change and be amazing. But along that way, I've found community. I never felt like I had community in Mobile before, like joining the entrepreneurship network and being exposed to other organizations that wanted me to be a part of what they're doing. Or like recently I was asked to sit on a panel in Birmingham. Like, I feel like my voice matters.
Yeah,
And I think that's what I wanted since I was young. I just didn't know that it would be able to happen in Alabama, that
yeah.
people would be interested in what I had to say. um, so that's been really amazing. And I think just finding value and like being authentically yourself and letting your journey be kind of zigzag and crazy, because so many times I think, especially as like a first generation college student, you're really taught like you go to college and you get a good job and
Mhm.
that's the life that is for you, and that's
Yep.
how you become successful.
Mhm.
And had I not, I guess in a sense, failed at getting a job out of college,
Through no fault of your own.
yeah, I would never have been able to explore other things. And I personally don't think that I would have been happy like
Mhm.
in the roles that I was applying to. So I feel like I've gained a whole lot. I've also gained back some sort of like reconciliation with the state of Alabama and how I feel here. Um, I've gotten closer to my family, and they've been very supportive of like everything that I'm doing. And even though they don't understand a lot of it, like they're
Mhm.
still really supportive. So, and I've been able to help educate people on topics that are really important that nobody wants to talk about,
Yeah.
the unglamorous things.
Mhm.
So I feel like the gifts have been endless. And I'm really grateful that this is how my journey has gone so far.
I think it's so exciting, and I love to see young people just making it happen. Um, since my kids are similar in ages to you, it's every single time one of them comes up with something, um, I get excited because it's just invigorating, to see
It is.
somebody turning, lemons into lemonade, basically, to use a horrible cliche. But I think we've all had to do that over the last couple of years. And a lot of us have had to really make it happen for ourselves because it's not going
Mhm.
to happen without that. How can people help if they want to either contribute? I know you haven't got your crowdfunding set up yet. And when you do, we will put that on the website and add it to the end of the video. Um, but how can people help you and get in touch with you?
Yeah, so we are active on social media. So if you follow us on Instagram, at shop.monthly is for the monthly menstrual underwear, and at the dot monthly project is for the charity project. Any likes, follows, shares, any support that you can show is just really amazing. Um, I mean, and I'm always open to like talking. I love to talk about the products and learn about other people's experiences. So just send us a DM if you want to get in touch, really. And yeah, I mean, we're going to be launching the crowdfunding soon. And if you'd like to financially support, that will be amazing if you will pre-order underwear. And I think something that's really exciting is that we're going to launch a feature as well that, like, maybe even if you don't menstruate, but you really identify with the cause and the product, you can purchase menstrual underwear on behalf of somebody in need in the state of Alabama. And we'll go ahead and donate those once we are.
Perfect. I was actually going to ask that very question, so I'm glad you beat me to it. I think that's a great way for people to get involved, particularly people who are not involved in the cause but want to contribute in some way. It's very easy to buy a pair of underwear that someone else can wear and benefit from.
Over and over again.
Over and over again. That's the best part. It's not disposable.
Yeah, it's reusable. So
yeah, that's so great. So one last question is, if someone wants to donate to your charity, what is the best way to do that?
yeah, so you can go to our website, which is themonthlyproject.org, and we have some donation options on our, I believe we have a donate page. So if you just scroll on over, we have Cash App, PayPal, and a few other ways that you can donate.
Perfect. All right, Aiko, we're going to be keeping in touch for sure. And as things come along, I'm going to have you back as often as you want to. I think this is such a great thing that you're doing. And thank you for what you're doing, because as someone who has also felt a lack of community living in Alabama, it's just really great to get to know people like you who are doing the work to make a difference.
Thank you.